Sie Good morning, everyone. We're going to start in just a moment. So I want to give the 1 minute countdown or 1 minute warning here, and we will then begin the public hearing for the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. Why don't I, now that I've started talking, I'll just give some overall rules of the road for folks. Many of you already know this, members of the public and folks who are planning on testifying, but people who are going to be asking questions or testifying, we want their, if it's virtual, we'd like their cameras on, please. And we are going to adhere to the 3-minute mark, as all these committees do. Our clerk, Jazz. Where's Jazz? Jazz is going to be our timekeeper here. So we just ask that people, if you find yourself being cut off, one, it's not personal, and Jazz is just doing the best to make sure that everyone gets has a chance to be heard, and you could finish your thought, finish your sentence, and then obviously if members have questions, we can go from there. We have 8 bills which we're going to be hearing today. Have about 26 speakers. So that's what the afternoon, the rest of the morning looks like. Before we call our first speaker, and I would say, by the way, that the folks who are, when you testify, if you could identify the bill or bills, if there's more than one that you plan on speaking to, that would be helpful for all of us. Before we get going, ask my co-chair, Representative Haddad, do you have any comments?
No, except just to say that, most of these are proposed bills, and so there's not a lot of finished legislative language in front of us. And so people should feel free to bring to us good ideas for workforce development that are related to these bills, or other things that you think the committee should consider.
Thank you, Representative. Around, I think we are ready to go. So again, eight bills that we're going to be hearing today. I do believe that I saw our first speaker. There she is, Representative Khanna, who is ready to go, and she's going to be testifying remotely. So Representative, welcome to the Higher Education Committee. The floor is yours. I look forward to your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning, Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, Senator Kelly, Representative Haynes, Senator Marr, and Representative Rochelle, and members of the Higher Education and Employment Committee. My name is Rachel Khanna. I represent the 149th District of Connecticut. I appear before you today to testify in favor of House Bill 5441, an act concerning college graduates who work in the fields of education or healthcare in the state. We are at the intersection of several demographic trends that will significantly impact our ability to grow our workforce and our economy. Connecticut's population decline continued last year, with a population growth at 1/4 of the national average. The Connecticut Business and Industry Association has highlighted how our shrinking population hampers our ability to spur economic growth. Currently, there are over 100,000 open jobs in Connecticut that employers are struggling to fill. Being able to retain and attract residents to the state requires that we provide key quality of life services, education, and healthcare. Yet it is in these sectors that we are encountering a critical labor shortage. According to the Connecticut Center for Nursing Workforce, 50% of nurses in Connecticut are over the age of 50. This means that we can expect significant retirements in the next 15 years, just as we are facing the aging of 76 million baby boomers nationwide, many with multiple chronic diseases. A 2018 statewide nursing education report found that Connecticut nursing schools have limited seat capacity and can only accept 21% of qualified applicants. Of those graduating, only 25% stay in the field past the first year. It is critical that we seek ways to expand the number of seats available to students seeking nursing degrees, and that we provide incentives for them to remain in the field. Similarly, according to a recent survey by the Connecticut Teachers Association, 74% of teachers are considering leaving the profession earlier than they had planned. In addition, there has been a sharp decline in the number of students enrolling in and graduating from teacher education programs. I urge the committee to explore ways that we can retain graduates in the fields of education and nursing. These might include loan forgiveness for students from nursing and teaching programs if they remain in the state for a minimum of 2 years and are working in their profession. Increasing the capacity of existing nursing and teaching education programs and expanding clinical and internship programs prior to and after graduation. Creating partnerships between state agencies, healthcare trade, and professional associations to develop a workforce strategic plan, and supporting new employees through mentoring and induction programs. And finally, accepting out-of-state credentials and/or easing certification or accreditation requirements where appropriate. I thank you for your attention to these important issues.
Representative, thank you for your testimony. I do not see any questions, so I'm sorry, my co-chair Representative Haddad.
Yeah, Representative Khanna, I just wanted to thank you for your testimony. I appreciate the perspective that you bring to our committee, and I think that you put your finger on, the right, well, at least two of the serious shortages that we experience in fields in both education and in healthcare, particularly in healthcare and with nurses. I wondered if you had, you mentioned expanding capacity of programs is important. And that's a goal I think that maybe this committee can and should consider. I've asked the University of Connecticut, and I think, plan on asking folks at the state university system as well, for ways that they can expand opportunities to train additional nurses. Additionally, as I understand it, one of the bottlenecks in the nursing pipeline is making sure that nurses can get the clinical hours that are required for them to become fully licensed. I guess I'm just wondering if those are the kinds of efforts that you're speaking of particularly. I had a bill a couple of years ago that would have created a tax incentive for small businesses, practices really who employ RNs and other kinds of nurses to expand the number of preceptorships. That's the mentorship that's required for a nursing student to get their clinical hours as a way of expanding, easing this bottleneck and expanding the number of opportunities that folks might have. And so I didn't know if you had any additional specifics around tactics that we can employ, or if you think you could get behind some of the ones that I just mentioned.
Yes, I can. And to your point, as I mentioned earlier, only there are about 13,000 applicants. Of those, 21% accepted into programs, and of those, only 25% stay in the field past the first year. So it's critical to offer more opportunities to enroll, more seats, and also offer, the ability for nurses to have mentors who can shepherd them through the process past the first year, and to ensure that they stay in the field.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you.
So no further questions. We thank you for your time, Representative, and your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, up next is Steve Bender. He is going to be joining us in person, and then on deck is Marva Taylor, who is going to be testifying remotely. So Steve Bender and then Marva Taylor. Yep.
Hopefully you're under the screen, so feel fortunate. In many hearings, you're staring into the projector, but here we're not. Yeah. So that's a good thing. If you could just make sure that you press the button and the red light comes on to your microphone, then. How does that happen?
Yep.
How's that?
We'll give it a whirl. Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Hi, representatives and senators. I'm Steve Bender, Executive Director of the 1199 Training Fund, which is a labor management partnership that administers education and training benefits for eligible members of our union, District 1199, the New England Healthcare Employees Union. I'm speaking in support of HB 5438, an act establishing a debt-free college program for employees of daycare facilities, home health care agencies, and nursing homes. Bottom line, what a wonderful and important idea this is. Absolutely. Currently, 52 nursing homes contribute to our training fund via their collective bargaining agreements with the union. And close to 6,000 nursing home workers are eligible for these benefits. And we also administer education and training for thousands of PCAs, personal care attendants, represented by District 1199. Hundreds of 1199 members work hard every year to attend college training programs, earn certifications, degrees of various kinds to support themselves and their families. Many are attending school to become nurses, LPNs or RNs. They earn various other degrees in allied health programs, social work, all kinds of things. And our training fund benefits cover part of the cost for our eligible members, but some are still left with a huge student loan debt upon graduation. A particular issue that I'd like to mention is LPN school. 10 years ago, you might know the state of Connecticut closed all of its LPN programs. Currently, there are only 3 for-profit LPN programs in the state, all costing close to $40,000. This is outrageous. I understand that the state of Connecticut is currently exploring reopening publicly funded LPN programs in the future, but that's going to be a ways off. And so since there are no public LPN programs in the state right now, I encourage you to consider including the cost of private LPN programs in this bill that you're considering. I also encourage you to include in this bill the thousands of independent provider home care workers who do not work for home care agencies. There are over 10,000 such workers in Connecticut, and they deserve the same opportunity as the other workers that are being considered here. I'd like to just end with a short quote from one of our members. There are lots of these, but this member said, "I'm a single mother. I'm working 2 jobs, and going to school is like having 3 jobs. But this time I'm determined I am not giving up until I'm finished." This is exactly the kind of person, of worker, who deserves to graduate from school debt-free. Thanks for listening and your consideration of this.
Thank you, Mr. Bender. Any questions, my colleagues? Oh, yes, Representative.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for your testimony. I appreciate it very much. And I'm thinking about some of the folks I met in Norwalk who have home-based daycare and run a small business fundamentally out of their home. Or do you also, based on your testimony, think that this private home caregivers, I know, may not be, that's more for adults? Am I to understand that correctly? Or
yeah, that particular group is actually not something I deal with specifically, but I would encourage to broaden this out. There's a variety of low-wage healthcare workers, childcare workers, home care workers that would love to go to school if they're given the opportunity. Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? And I'm looking online as well. I don't see any. So thank you very much for your testimony. Have a good rest of your day. All right. Next is Marva Taylor, and I do not. Oh, okay. I see Marva. She's joining us remotely. Marva,
Hi.
are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you turn your camera on, Marva?
Can you
Hey,
see me
Marva.
now?
Yes, we can. Wonderful.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Good morning to Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, members of the committee. My name is Marva Thomas Taylor, and I'm a nurse clinical instructor here at Connecticut Valley Hospital in Middletown. I've worked as a nurse for 20 years. Currently, Connecticut Valley Hospital is short-staffed on nurses that the hospital had to modify its nursing ratios. We need to do everything we can do to increase the number of nursing coming through the nursing programs into the state facilities where we take care of our most vulnerable clients. In the past, we made sure to have 1 RN to 23 patients. Now it's changed. We operate with 1 RN anywhere from 46 to 69 patients because often an RN will have to do 2 to 3 units instead of just 1 unit. This has a serious impact on patients because it means that they have to wait for a nurse to become available. We take care of our very acute patients struggling with a variety of severe mental health and medical needs. When patients have to wait for assessments, meds, or attention to urgent life-threatening needs, this increases the acuity and leads to sometimes life or death situations and violent acted out behaviors on the unit. This creates an increasingly dangerous environment, obviously, for the other patients on the unit as well as the staff. We need to do a better job of connecting new nurses to state facilities and to care for the people that we care for. New nurses need to experience a variety of care environments, and often our services are in the shadows because we take care of the most vulnerable. Creating clinical placements and internship programs with state facilities in collaboration with state colleges will help a lot. That will help us recruit new nurses. We also need to fund preceptor programs to give more nurses support on the job. This is hard work, I know, and we need to make nursing homes more, or nursing facilities more attractive by supporting nursing on a whole. Supporting nurses also means we need to pay attention more to nursing, what they do, and obviously the pay. Offer sign-on bonuses and ensure public sector nursing is valued comparatively to private sector nursing compensations. All of these steps reflect a comprehensive recruitment and retention strategy to support nurses who are taking care of the most vulnerable patients in Connecticut, on the front line in Connecticut. Thank you for your time.
Marva, thank you. I don't want to assume, but let me ask you, are you testifying in support of proposed bill 5441?
It says 936, but concerning
Yep.
the concern of the workforce development,
Right.
yes.
Okay. Thank you. Let
Thank
me
you.
Representative Haddad, did you?
Yeah, you mentioned preceptorships and you said you're working, you're a state employee, you work as an RN at Connecticut Valley Hospital.
Yes.
Have you served as a preceptor yourself?
Well, pretty much the nurse clinical instructor department, which I'm currently working in addition to working on the units. Yes, I have obviously shadowed and support the staff that's here, the nursing staff that's here continuously.
Yeah. I just wondered whether or not, like, what do you see are the barriers to having more nurses or more opportunities to sort of ease this bottleneck with preceptors? What causes that bottleneck? Are nurses ever reluctant to take on the additional responsibility of shepherding a student around in a clinical setting? And if they do volunteer to take on that responsibility, is there any additional compensation afforded to those nurses?
You mean the preceptors?
Right, the preceptors.
No, it's all on volunteer basis. You know, supporting one another because, you know, the field is so compromised right now, so short. You want to support each other, you know, doing whatever you need to do to make, you know, a preceptee comfortable and, you know, understanding the dynamics of the job, the environment, the cultures that's there, and the interrelations with the patients and with other peers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Marva. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, you too.
All right. So our next two speakers are going to be testifying remotely, Elizabeth Frazier and then Andrea Thompson after Elizabeth. Oh, you are? Okay. Well, here you do appear in person. Elizabeth, good to see you, and go right ahead. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Senator Slapp, Representative. Oh, I didn't. Oh, that's why. Thank you. Good afternoon, Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, Ranking Member Senator Kelly and Representative Haynes, and esteemed members of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. My name is Liz Fraser. I'm the Policy Director for the Connecticut Association for Human Services. I'm here today in support of House Bill 5438, an act establishing a debt-free college program. Enactment of this program will enable early educators and employees of nursing homes, some of the lowest paid employees in the state, to have access to debt-free higher education. Implemented correctly, this benefit will provide a path to the degrees and certifications necessary to be employed in their field of expertise and to climb a career ladder to better positions. My personal expertise is in early care and education, so my notes today reflect that. In past years, the General Assembly has passed legislation requiring all early childhood programs funded by the state to be of high quality and that each classroom have a bachelor degreed educator, which is one of the indicators measured by the National Association for the Education of Young Children. While there's been progress, it has been a difficult goal to reach. State-funded programs have not received increases since 2015, making it impossible to offer compensation necessary to attract and retain staff who have earned degrees. Recent legislation pushed the BA requirement out to 2030, so there is some time to get a pipeline of teachers in place and reach this goal. Yet right now, it's hard to convince anyone to pay for a bachelor's degree in a field that pays so little. There are some scholarships, but not enough to support a strong pipeline of early educators, which is needed now. On top of this, many colleges are not even offering degreed programs in early childhood because they cannot attract enough students. The loss of early educators is happening in all types of programs across the state. Experienced teachers, woefully underpaid, and many not receiving health insurance are leaving the field. Many of the teachers with BAs in early education left for the public schools. Some left for companies like Amazon, where the pay is much better and there's a lot less stress. Others have simply retired. And the data from the Office of Early Childhood QSM reports that there's been a decline in the percentage of staff holding degrees. A recent survey of childcare providers provided by our organization tells us that there are approximately 4,400 staff vacancies across Connecticut. The inability to hire staff has meant classrooms are closed and an estimated 22,000 children are not able to enroll in a program. The industry needs more early care teachers and paraprofessionals, yet finding early educators with the needed credentials is near impossible. So that is basically it. There is a real crisis in early care and education, and the ability to access debt-free higher education is extremely important to this community. It's just one piece of a much bigger puzzle that needs to be fixed, but.
No, thank you. And I do have a question for you. And
Sure.
I think you did a good job articulating this disconnect between the what we're asking, right, as far as
Mhm.
credentials and our expectations of these providers, but at the same time, then the cost to get them, right? So,
Yes.
there are some proposals. The Board of Regents, as you probably know, has proposed what they call PAC Plus, which would be expending the debt-free program, right, from our community colleges into our CSCU system, but have it targeted to certain fields. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that, but do you think that concept would address
Well,
what you're talking about here today?
yeah, I think that the current program, you have to be a first-time student. And I believe that there are a certain number of hours you have to spend in that classroom. These are hardworking people that are working all day long with children. They will not be able to be full-time. Many of them have taken classes. They're in a career ladder. So it would need to be substantially updated in order to make this work. We really need to have flexible hours, online classes that are, this is happening all over. Two of my kids are doing that because they work full time. It needs to be adapted to the working person who is looking for extended credentials.
And this is, you're saying beyond the community college system, right?
Oh, it needs to be
Yeah.
up through the bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any
welcome.
other questions? Representative?
I do, yeah, and I know that Merrill Gay is up next on the list, and maybe he'd be able to answer this question too. But could you just paint for us a picture of just what the wages look like? My little anecdote is just, I served on the board of a daycare, a town-sponsored daycare 20 years ago for 10 years. And my very first meeting, they handed out a staff salary list for the folks who worked at the daycare. And I asked the director if everybody worked there part-time, because I was shocked at how low the wages were. And I couldn't imagine that they were full-time wages. They disabused me of that notion. They told me they were all full-time workers. And so the economics in daycare are particularly challenging.
Yeah.
On the flip side, parents, it was a parent board, were sort of cash strapped. I mean, they didn't feel like they could pay any more for daycare on a basis. And so that's a serious problem that I think that we need to address. But it's important in this, as we have this conversation, we want to require advanced degrees for people who work in this field. But can you give us a picture about what the typical
Absolutely.
wages look
Yeah.
like currently?
First, to your point about the system, I've been working in early care. I was just saying I went to Wheelock for early care and education, and that was 45 years ago. So I've been in this field a very, very long time. It has always been like that. We sort of consider it a service, and it's a throwback to the 60s. We are not considering that we need a workforce. We need to have women in the workforce. And we know right now we have more jobs in Connecticut to fill than there are people looking. So we have an economic problem as well. And the early care system, parents can't afford it. The federal government says parents should be paying no more than 7% of their income. Under 20% of families are paying that. Everyone else is paying more than 7%. And wages are extremely low. So we really need to very constructively figure out how to solve that big problem. This bill is one of those things. As far as figures, I do have some figures. And what I'm going to do is, from what I understand, Merrill and I have actually been looking at these figures together, and he will have the better information for you. It's in my testimony, but there was an error. And so we need to, it's just old data because the minimum wage has gone up. So it's a little bit outdated, and I think Merrill has the correct information for you. It's very low. I will tell you that.
Yeah, I'll ask Merrill.
Yeah.
when
It's about minimum wage to about maybe $20 an hour is the range from early uncredentialed to a bachelor's degree teacher.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay. Thanks so much for your testimony. Yeah. All right. So Andrea Thompson is going to be joining us remotely, and then the aforementioned Merrill Gay is on deck. So Andrea, are you there? We'll give her a second to connect to audio. And
Hello,
hello, you may want to tilt your camera down just a bit.
I'm about to.
Okay.
Okay, let me sit up a little higher. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, and the members and committee. My name again, like he said, is Andrea Thompson. I'm an LPN and I work for Demas. I've been a nurse for 13 years. And 6 of those 13 years, I've been at Demas. I almost spent 2 years within Addiction Services, which is considered ASD, and it's at Connecticut Valley Hospital, where the building is located. Right now, we're operating under 50% of capacity due to staffing crisis. The addiction division alone has 50 nurses vacancies, and around the entire campus is 350 at the whole total Connecticut Valley Hospital. The waiting list that we have, that what it is where people that's on addictions that's trying to get into rehab is 12 weeks and counting. We have a waiting list that people have to call to try to get in. It's 12 weeks and counting, and the phones are ringing every day, every minute. There's not enough staffing to answer the phones to help our community. Our neighbors and family and friends are looking for help. I know many people are looking for help because I also work at a methadone clinic, and they're always looking to try to get into CVH because it's the highest level of care they have in the state right now. and there's no staffing to help them to even get them in there. If anyone knows suffering from addictions, you know that we're needing to make service available. We are failing our state when ASD is operating really under 50% because there's no nurses. There are people who depend on our services are most valuable, and they are so vulnerable. We have the highest security and clinical complex, suffer from substance abuse and physical psychiatric needs. The hospital has a lot and do not successfully have an outpatient service where we can help our patients. Understanding these clients are often to our communities are Black and brown and uninsured people, which they don't have the access to the public insurance and the private sector. So they're not able to get that need they have to get the help they need. Understanding these clients are often really shrinking and they really need the help. And it's hard for them to get it when the department they need doesn't have the proper staffing. It is sad that the highest level of care of clients in a need of addiction is barely operating. We're barely functioning, we're barely operating. When there are not enough nurses, care is compromised. When you cannot provide proper treatment to someone struggling with addiction as a nurse, when you are passing meds, screening for admission to bringing someone in, supervising, trying to staff the building and run the units. If we have more nurses and other healthcare staff, we'll be able to treat more individuals in the need of a life-saving care. I'm asking that you invest in our staff by creating a nursing pipeline from colleges to the public sector. Tap into LPNs like myself and other mental health care workers who understand the needs of this population to help train the new generation of the nurses that's coming in. Train the registered nurses, train to establish a preceptor program where we can have the schools send their nurses to us and we have the existing nurses train them. So we have that direct pipeline to get them in there. So
Andrea, can I ask that you summarize your comments, please?
yes,
Thank
basically what I want us to do is to utilize where we can get nurses coming straight from colleges and other LPN schools to help provide our staffing. We need the staffing.
Thank you. And what bill are you testifying on, Andrea?
The act concerning workforce development.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony. I do not see any questions. We do appreciate your time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to remind folks too who are testifying to please state at the beginning which bill you're going to be speaking on. Up next is Merrill Gay. And then after that is Dora Amoa, who's going to be joining us remotely. But Merrill, good afternoon. Good to see you.
There we go. Start over again, or is that? Okay. Senator Schlapp, Representative Haddad, members of the committee, my name is Merrill Gay. I'm the Executive Director of the Connecticut Early Childhood Alliance. I'm here today to speak in favor of House Bill 5438 to expand the debt-free college program to employees of daycare centers, nursing homes, and I think it's home care agencies. Obviously, my interest is in the early care workforce. Liz Fraser mentioned the survey that she had done earlier this fall. From that survey, we determined that there are roughly 22,000 licensed childcare spots that are offline right now due to a staff shortage of about 4,400 workers in the early care industry. Obviously, that has a lot to do with the low wages that early educators earn. And that is a result of the fact that parents generally can't afford to pay more. And that's the primary source of revenue for the industry. As wages went up in the rest of the economy, the childcare industry has been reeling. They've been shedding staff, and it's been very difficult to hire new staff. As somebody just said in the meeting earlier, I'm afraid that right now we're willing to hire anybody with a pulse who can pass a background check. There's been a huge brain drain from the early care field as skilled early educators with years of experience have left for jobs as paraprofessionals in the public school system. That's the level of wage difference. There are many early educators who are working for minimum wage without health insurance. In some of the programs that serve wealthier families that are able to charge a little bit more, bachelor's degree staff are in the $19 to $20 an hour range, well below what they would earn if they were working in a public school system. So we have this challenge of trying to raise wages in the field, and that is essentially we need to figure out how to fill a hole of money. And there are some other bills in the legislature that we hope will help with that. But we also have this pressing need to educate the new workforce as well as to increase the skills for the existing workforce. And while the Office of Early Childhood offers a small scholarship program, it's not up to the task that at hand. House Bill 5438 to expand debt-free
That
college.
is your 3-minute mark. Please summarize.
Yes. So this would be a big step in the right direction, and I hope that you could support it.
Thanks, Merrill. Representative Haddad, did you have a question?
First, I'm just gonna ask you to repeat something. You said, who offers the small scholarship program that's not up to the task?
The Office of Early Childhood has a small scholarship program that is aimed primarily at employees in accredited programs, particularly the state-funded programs, where we have a state mandate to work towards the goal of having a bachelor's degree teacher in every state-funded childcare program. And that parallels the accredited program, and there are many non-state funded accredited programs as well.
Do you happen to know what the appropriation is to that?
It uses the unspent school readiness dollars,
Okay.
which usually in a typical year is less than $2 million.
Mhm.
Because we have so many vacant school readiness slots right now, we're not spending a lot of that money, and whether or not OEC will be able to ramp up their scholarship program during this time when those slots are not filled, that is a possibility. You'd need to talk to the commissioner about whether that's a way.
Are the unfilled slots a result of the pandemic?
The unfilled slots are primarily due to lack of staff. One of the programs that runs school readiness and a child development center in my town of New Britain normally employs 110 employees. They are short 50 staff right now. It's very hard to operate your program at anything close. I mean, they're at like 50% capacity, which means they're trying to support all their fixed costs with much less revenue.
And then the last one, just I'd asked the previous speaker to talk about the
Wages.
current data around average wages in the field.
Right.
Could you speak to
So
that?
for entry-level staff, it's pretty much minimum wage work. And then moving up to people with degrees in an associate degrees, that's tends to be in the $16 to $17, $15 to $17 range. And then in bachelor's degree teachers are sort of $17 to $20 an hour range. It's very low wage work compared to the rest of the economy. And the number of early educators who work a second job to be able to pay rent is pretty mind-blowing. It's all over the place.
Thank you.
Just a quick question here. So I just want to make sure I understand. So the Office of Early Childhood Education has some scholarship money available.
Yeah.
And they can't use it all, right? Because
Oh, they're using it all.
they are using it all.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
maybe I missed-
they've typically focused that on people who are trying to get their bachelor's degrees.
Right.
But there are now lots of people at the associate's degree level, or people who don't even have an associate's degree, who are getting hired to fill spots that in the past had been filled by someone with an associate's
Right.
degree. You know, that program I mentioned in my community, they've lost a huge number of their assistant teachers to the public school system to become paraprofessionals and to other employers completely out of the early care world. So they've got to fill all those positions, and at minimum now, as of July 1st, state-funded programs have to have at least an associate's degree teacher in every
Right.
classroom.
So if the legislature appropriated more money, that fund, are you confident that despite the relatively low salaries for these positions, that fund would be enough of an incentive to get folks to come into the workforce and get through and be employed?
No, we need to do both. We need
Yeah.
to figure out how to raise compensation. But at the same time that I'm saying that, we have people in the field working in early care programs who do not have associate's degrees, who need to increase their skill level. And this bill would help with that problem of those incumbent workers getting the skills they need. Some of them are going to need those skills, those credentials in order to keep their jobs as the credential requirements go up.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Representative.
Thank you, and thank you for testifying for this bill. So in my district, I represent Ansonia and Derby. We've had an issue because we're a lower wage, a lower income community. The daycares really can only afford to pay minimum wage. And because of that, they really can't compete with other daycares from other regions that pay higher. And the feedback that I've been getting is that they will take anyone, even if this is not the career path that they want to go into for the rest of their lives. And that while programs like the OEC program are a great start for fulfilling the larger workforce needs in the long term, they're trying to hire college kids in the summertime. They're trying to hire single moms that are using, the only way they can afford to get back into the workforce is to have the daycare at their job. And they're really looking at creative ways to get a workforce, even if it's for a year or 2 years, to incentivize people to go into this field for any amount of time. We know from CBIA that daycare is one of the biggest, and from other surveys actually, that daycare is one of the biggest barriers to women getting back into the workforce after COVID. Do you think there is value in doing a program that says, yes, we are also funding to get you into the education pipeline, but we will incentivize higher education for you if you're almost like a work core, saying if you're putting time into working in a daycare or a home health program, that qualifies you for this step-free higher education?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to figure out how to fill the needs of the early care industry. We know that people who have training in child development are much better able to interpret a child's behavior as something other than just they're a bad kid, and to understand the stages of development and how you best scaffold their learning so that they can reach their optimal development. So there's a real value to having a skilled workforce. We have a problem that this is because the way we pay for childcare is primarily through tuition, that we leave it primarily to families to pay for. That is a real problem about compensating the workforce. But we've got to deal with both sides of this. We've got to figure out how to increase compensation and make sure that we have a trained workforce. Your bill helps to do that by making you eligible for debt-free college if you work in this field.
And how many slots are currently, how many jobs are currently open in this field, and how many slots are going unfulfilled because we can't staff properly?
So at this point, our best estimate is that there are 4,400 positions empty in the early care field, and that translates to about 22,000 slots being offline, which is about 20% of the child care capacity in the state.
So that could be 22,000 workers that are staying
Yes.
home taking care of their
Right.
children because they can't get back to work.
Right.
They have no
And
slots.
I think the last numbers I saw, there were 97,000 open jobs and 80 some odd 80,000 people looking. So they're at 15,000 more jobs than there were people looking for work. And I was going to say,
Yeah.
if
So
Wyatt was here, I would ask him, but that though we have a huge set of unfilled positions without even anybody looking for them at a time when we've got families unable to go to work because they can't find childcare.
Yeah, well, I very much appreciate your testimony and putting this in focus. You know, we know that childcare is a huge barrier for folks getting back to work, and also is a huge expense for folks. And it's a low wage job. And folks do want upward mobility. These are women and people of color working in this industry, and they deserve to have access to upward mobility. And people deserve to have highly qualified and trained folks. My mom was a home daycare provider, so I grew up with a daycare in my home, and I have a special place in my heart for the work that childcare providers do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marilyn. Yep, Representative Turco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's very good to see you today, Merrill. I just wanted to ask if you can tell me a little bit about the positions that require an associate's degree and the positions that require a bachelor's degree. One of the things this legislature is looking at this session, besides bills like this, that specifically would provide debt relief or assistance in paying for higher education for childcare workers, is expansion of the PAC program to individuals who may be in a later stage in their life, not coming directly out of high school, which is where the current program is, but somebody that decides maybe they never went to college, or they started college but didn't finish, and now they want to go to one of our community colleges and get that associate's degree, and they would have no out-of-pocket cost, which would greatly benefit the individuals that need an associate's degree and at least get them towards that bachelor's degree. So want to understand a little bit more about the different positions that childcare industry hires and needs, and what degrees they each have. Thank you.
Yeah. So the state back in 2010 set a goal that for the state funded programs, we would have a bachelor level teacher in every classroom that was a state funded classroom by 2015. Well, it became very apparent that we couldn't meet that deadline. There weren't enough bachelor's degree programs for early childhood to train that many. And so the deadline has been kicked out. It's now stands at 2030 as the deadline for when you have to have a bachelor's degree staff person in each classroom. But in the meantime, the Office of Early Childhood has sort of set up a stepped process so that by this July, we're supposed to have associate's degree level teachers in every classroom, associates or better. So currently for the 16,083 classrooms, I think it is, we have 957 bachelor's degree teachers and less than 500 associate's degree teachers. So we have right now only about half of the programs have all of their classrooms staffed by the proper credentialed teachers. And so I'm only looking at the narrow slice of state funded programs there because they're the only ones who have this requirement. Although any program that has accreditation is also working towards that same goal of having higher credentialed teachers in every classroom. So that there is a real push and need for more training for the early care workforce.
Thank you very much.
And when your question about expanded PACT, most of the people working in early care are not that, they won't be the traditional, I just finished high school, now I'm going to college person, because they're working a full-time job. And so they're going to be going to school part-time in the evenings. Many of them have found that doing it online has been more convenient for them because they've got their own kids at home. That is the kind of flexibility that this workforce needs.
Great. Thank you. Representative Farrar.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Merrill. Nice to see you. Great questions to my colleagues. I actually just have a follow-up. Particularly, I know we're talking a lot about PACT because there's proposals on the table. And one of the things you just highlighted was how many folks are in the workforce right now that need to be further accredited. If we look at kind of our range of, community college and bachelor's programs that are out there, are the programs, do they have the capacity right now to serve the numbers of folks that you're talking about? Or do we have to look at, increasing the capacity as well of the professors, the classes that are available to serve the workers
I
too.
think we've had a challenge that while the industry needs more trained people,
Yeah,
the higher ed programs are not finding people enrolling. And therefore, those programs that train early educators have shrunk.
mhm,
Some time ago, CCSU
mhm.
eliminated their early care program, then they brought it back, but not for early care so much as early intervention
Mhm.
specialists. And so we have a limited capacity right now.
Yeah.
The enrollment in the community college programs has dropped substantially.
Mhm.
It's picked up substantially at Charter Oak, which offers the online
Online,
program.
yeah.
And, you know, that hadn't really been much the norm before the pandemic. And then we started doing everything online, and early educators realized, wow, this is a whole lot easier if I don't have to be arranging childcare and driving to a community college to take my class in the evening. If I can do it online from home, that works better for me.
Right. So would you suggest to us as committee members, as we look at this component, again, not the big range of things we need to do in childcare, but specifically around preparing folks for the workforce and then training folks that are in the workforce right now. Would you say that we should also look beyond our community college and higher education institutions to look at other incumbent worker training program offerings or apprenticeship models, other things that could meet this need?
Yeah, apprenticeship models in particular are particularly useful. And we have, OEC is doing a pilot with apprenticeship programs to train people for the entry level credential, which is called the CEA.
Mhm.
That's more of that would certainly help.
Great. Thank you, Meryl, so much.
Great. I don't see any more questions. So Meryl, thank you for your
Thank you.
testimony. Have a good afternoon.
Okay.
All right, Dora Amoa, and I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. Dora. Oh, Dora's here. Okay. My apologies. Dora, you are next. And then Andrea Dennis is after that. Good afternoon, and just please state again which bill you'll be testifying on. Well, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dora Amoa, like you mentioned earlier, and I am going to be testifying on Bill 936. So in support of SB 936, an act concerning workforce development with additions. Senator Slab, Representative Haddad, members of the committee. My name is Dora Amoa. I am an RN at the Department of Corrections, and I live in Norwich. State agencies are currently facing serious staffing shortages. As part of a proposal to stabilize the state service for most vulnerable, I am here to urge you to please consider 1199's Grow Our Own Direct Care Nursing Strategies. One piece of the language we hope that you will include in SB 936 creates and funds paid preceptor programs for nursing students and novice nurses working at the state agencies. Preceptorship is a strategy commonly used in nursing education. By definition, a preceptor is an experienced licensed clinician who supervises nursing students during their clinical rotation. His or her role is to help students translate theoretical learning to clinical practice. If the state establishes a preceptor program, we would mentor nursing students and novice nurses as they start their state services by assisting them with reality-based knowledge, skill acquisition, confidence, and professional socialization. This kind of mentorship at the state facilities will provide novice nurses with the support they need to provide quality care to all patients across state agencies, including DOC, DMS, DDS, DCF, and DVA. It would also help us to retain a workforce that is much needed to provide the best care to our patients. Working with 1199 implement this policy and others that you hear today will help to restore public sector safety net, healthcare safety, and expand them to help our residents in our states.
Nora, thank you for your testimony. I do not see any questions, so we'll thank you and have a great rest of your day. I see Andrea is ready to go. So Andrea, good afternoon. And just before you start, we want to make sure that Chris Giuliano is ready to go next, and then Mag Morelli after Chris. But Andrea, the floor is yours. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Senator Slapp, and it's good to see you again, as well as you, Representative Haddad, Senator Kelly, Representative Haynes, and members of the committee. My name is Dr. Andrea Dennis, and I'm testifying on behalf of the Connecticut Veterinary Medical Association. We are the largest professional organization for veterinarians in the state of Connecticut. I'm here to support House Bill 5441. An act concerning college graduates who work in the fields of education or healthcare in the state. And we're asking the committee respectfully to include veterinarians as you consider the need for healthcare professionals in Connecticut. As you know, Connecticut currently does not have a veterinary school of medicine, and that causes our students to attend schools out of state. Like most states across the country, Connecticut is experiencing a major shortage of veterinarians. A recent poll of our members have shown that 74% of practices with open positions for doctors have experienced over a year to fill those positions. Meanwhile, our pet owners wait for weeks for routine appointments and experience long waits, anywhere from 8 to 10 hours at emergency rooms. So with this, our ERs are also facing situations where they're sometimes unable to see patients. It's a situation we've never seen like this before. There are currently an average of 45 Connecticut students per graduating class in veterinary schools around the country and abroad. Those students are paying an average of $55,000 per year, and that does not include living expenses. Any financial relief would be a benefit to those students. Providing incentive for those students to return to Connecticut would be an advantage for veterinary practice owners and pet owners alike here in our state. The CVMA, we supported the Kirkland MCUR program, which was passed into law by the Connecticut General Assembly and provided financial assistance to veterinary students from 2012 to 2017. This was a very successful program, and we would also would love for us to be considered in this bill to reinstitute this program, as it was an avenue to assist in veterinary recruitment to come back to the state. This program allowed for 5 students per class per year to be considered as in-state, meaning they would pay in-state tuition at the Iowa State University Veterinary School. And this was for the purposes of tuition. Iowa State received this money, and then the students were required to return to Connecticut and practice veterinary medicine for the financial assistance to be forgiven. We believe a program such as this is in line with the goal of this legislation, and that's again House Bill 5441. Thank you for your time, and I'm willing to accept any questions.
Thank you, Andrea. I think Representative Haddad has at least one question.
At least one question. First, you currently serve on the Board of Trustees at UConn, correct?
I do. Yeah, I do.
So first, I just wanted to thank you for your service. We don't often get members of the Board of Trustees testifying in front of the Higher Education Committee, and I know that you didn't identify yourself that way. But I just wanted to thank you for your service. I'm pleased. I mean, you've been on the board for a long time, and I wanted to thank you for your public service in that way. That's volunteer service, I know, and we appreciate it. We need good people to serve on the Board of Trustees and on the Board of Regents, and I just wanted to thank you for your service. The Kirkland Kerr veterinarian program, that's music to my ears to a colleague who's not here today. Representative D'Amico actually put in a bill to require that we establish a school of veterinary veterinarian school in Connecticut. That's a prohibitively expensive task. As I understand that the nearest school is probably Tufts.
Tufts is the closest. And now we have a school in Long Island. But again, and I don't mean to interrupt. I don't know where you're going with your question, but again, that's out-of-state tuition. And I did testify as a veterinarian during this time when we were asking for financial help with the Kirkland Kerr program, because again, being on the board of trustees at UConn, we knew that the state could not afford to build a school of veterinary medicine, even though there was that need. And that's why this program was so successful, because in lieu of the expense of a whole new veterinary school, we could help our students, we could encourage workers, veterinary doctors to come back to the state. And I just think, again, we may not be in this same position now in 2023 if we had those dollars continuing those programs, because the shortage, just like I'm hearing the nurses and my heart bleeds with all our healthcare shortages, but I know the veterinary world, but I don't believe our shortage would have been or is as great if we did have that Kirkland Kerr program to this day.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I wanted to thank you for your testimony and just bringing to light a program that I think fell victim to budget cuts several years ago, but we can certainly take a look at what it would take to reestablish that program. It will take a modest amount. I remember it being a very modest appropriation, but it paid dividends to those folks certainly that wanted to pursue that career path and encourage them once they had to, because they have to leave the state to get that, to pursue that career path. It helps to encourage them to return home once they've earned their credentials. So thank you.
We appreciate that understanding.
Right. Yes, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One quick question. How is the lack of veterinarians impacting Connecticut's agricultural industry, especially in terms of dairy, alpacas, llamas, et cetera? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I actually did a residency in large animal medicine, and the need in large animal is 3 times fold in terms of, and when you compare it even to our pet population. And it's not only on the state level, it's also on the federal level. The need is just so great, and it's impacted even in a worse manner. And again, our poultry service, as you mentioned, our dairy, if you don't have the doctors to take care of mastitis, take care of difficult births, farmers are just like, they just shrug their shoulders because they end up having to try to do sometimes things on their own, and it's unnecessary. So the need is extremely high.
Right. Thank you again, Andrea. It's good to see you.
Same
Have a good
here.
rest
It's been
of your afternoon.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Giuliani. Chris is, I see, joining us.
Yes, I'm on the phone. Thank you.
Chris, are you able to turn your camera on?
I just called in. I'm not I do not have video capabilities. I am speaking in support of SB 936, an act concerning workforce development. Senators and committee members, my name is Chris Giuliano. I am a supervising nurse at DCF Solent South. My assigned unit is a Passaic unit, but this is currently closed due to nurse shortages. DCF Solent provides the highest level of care in the state for children with acute mental health needs. It is currently operating at only 48% capacity, with 3 units that are offline, 2 of which have been taken offline in the last 3 years due to staffing shortages. We currently have over 32 nurse vacancies. What we do at Solent is different than any other hospital. I had worked at private hospitals, both Yale and St. Francis in the past, where I became a per diem nurse here for 10 years. And what I saw here was outstanding. The work done, you will not see anywhere else. So I did come on, and I have been a supervising nurse here for the last 6 years. Some of the services that we offer here, you do not see at other hospitals. Many disciplines, OT, we have a school on campus where most hospitals don't provide that. If kids at all, they may get some tutoring for a couple hours a week. We set up longer term care here for children, and it helps to more normalize them and help them have better interactions and build relationships. Since the kids here are here for longer, those long-term goals can, they can work on those long-term goals while here instead of outside in a place they may not feel safe. Our facility gives the kids the care for more chances for a successful outcome that is not available to them anywhere else. The kids that are most vulnerable in the state are here with multiple degrees of mental health issues, and they're unable to function in other settings. They come to us after spending many visits to the ER and even inpatient hospitalizations. When we close units for short staffing, there is no other place for them to get this type of care. Therefore, there's longer waits, and it goes down the system for community, and it holds up all those beds for other children. This problem can be solved. Most nurses who are currently working here at Solon itself found out about our services through clinical rotations. Most new nurses do not know that this place even exists. We need to get staff RNs into those classrooms in the state to speak passionately about the care that we provide. Reserving slots within community colleges nursing programs for state employees. Loan forgiveness and preceptor programs will all create more stability and retention. We also need to establish graduate nurse programs so nurses can be hired as they finish school before they complete their licensure exam. We need to set up a comprehensive recruitment and retention program for nurses within state service. I appreciate your time this afternoon.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for your testimony. I do not see any questions, so we'll wish you a good rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
All right, so Mag Morelli, I do see Mag is ready to go virtually. And then Paul Costello, I believe, is in person and will be joining us after that. Mag, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to testify virtually this afternoon. My name is Mag Morelli, and I'm the president of Leading Age Connecticut, a statewide membership association representing not-for-profit provider organizations serving older adults across the continuum of aging services, including not-for-profit skilled nursing facilities, retirement communities, adult day centers, and home health care agencies. I'm pleased to be here to testify in support of two of the bills before you today, both House Bill 5438 and House Bill 5441. The members of Leading Age Connecticut appreciate and strongly support this committee's efforts to develop initiatives aimed at addressing the state's healthcare workforce shortage by increasing the number of college-trained healthcare professionals in the state. Addressing the workforce crisis is a priority for Leading Age Connecticut, and we're working together with the collaborative of other healthcare associations to find solutions as we are all struggling to hire from the same limited pool of candidates. We know that there is no silver bullet solution to solve this problem, and that it will take a comprehensive and multifaceted approach. The proposals put forth in the bills before you today include a very important element of the solution, and that is providing financial incentives and support for college students to pursue careers in healthcare and aging services. In fact, the financial assistance proposed in these bills could encourage and enable a person to pursue a college education in this field when they otherwise might have found it unaffordable. Expanding the opportunity to enroll in these programs and making them affordable is a key aspect of our multifaceted approach. We again thank the committee for proposing the bills and for your efforts to address the workforce crisis in the healthcare and aging services field. Thank you for this opportunity to testify, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mag, thank you. I do not see any questions. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Costello. So Paul Costello will be testifying now, and then Sean Bradbury after Paul. Paul, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you again. Chairman Haddad, SLAP, and ranking members Haynes and Kelly, thank you for the opportunity to speak on HB 5745, an act concerning the training of solar installation workers. My name is Paul Costello, and I'm a training director for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. We are pleased to see this bill when it appeared and thank the committee for considering it today's public hearing. HB 5745 does not raise a new concern with the lack of a career pathway in the PV industry. There have been several bills over the years addressing the lack of advancement for Connecticut workers installing solar photovoltaic systems when the exemption was added in 2007. As Connecticut saw the trend of PV installations advancing from the West Coast, especially after we had funding through the Connecticut Clean Energy Fund, industry saw a need for safe code compliant installations. In 2005, legislation required the Electrical Examining Board to adopt regulations establishing a limited electrical license, which is a PV 1 and 2. Individuals that show proof of experience during that time installing PV systems were grandfathered and allowed to sit for the exam. As with all occupations, once there's a license, there needs to be a pathway, and that pathway is through apprenticeship. In 2009, a working group was formed by Connecticut Department of Labor Apprenticeship Division. This work group comprised of non-union electrical contractors, myself representing the union sector, and individuals from the solar industry, surprisingly, some that may be speaking against this. Over several meetings, the work group collectively drafted related instructions and work schedules outlining the courses and on-the-job training experience required for the 2-year PV apprenticeship. The outline material include topics on safety, building construction, and primarily electrical code. These courses total a minimum of 280 hours of related instructions. In addition to an apprenticeship, there is the OJT or on-the-job portion. This portion is 4,000 hours. These work processes involve the physical wiring and installation of solar electric systems. Both the related and OJT work practices were modeled after an apprenticeship program that was in Oregon. I made an attachment with the work schedule that outlines what the different tasks are for the work practices for your reference. But clearly, there's about 700 hours of OJT in just the installation and the racking of the modules. In many cases, this is work that is being completed through the exemption, limiting the work for an apprentice because it's not required. In 2009, there were a total of 11,398 electrical licenses in all of the different categories, with only 8 people holding 9 of the PV type license. They made up at that time 0.7079% of the electrical license. Today, 14 years later, there are 13,186 electrical licenses, with only 21 of them being of the PV type. Even after all these years, they make up only 0.16% of the electrical. So, again, thank you. It's really through an exemption, through the licensing that I made a reference to, that's taking a large portion of the work that an apprentice typically would be learning their work practices to obtain that PV license. I think between the lack of the growth, we do have the licensing requirements there, but there's been no growth in almost 15 years that we've had it in place. And I think a large portion of that is due to the exemption. Individuals don't have the opportunity to get those work skills, or what they're doing is there's really no incentive for that person that their task, and what I referenced the racking, and what I mean by that is they mount the system that the module is attached to. That's all part of the electrical work. And I should also note that's the only one exemption to our electrical license. If I was installing a luminaire, a light fixture, from the time we take it out of the box, that's all electrical under the E-type license. So an apprentice or a licensed journey person would be responsible to properly install the light fixture, fasten it, and complete the wiring. In reality, this is the equivalent of allowing somebody to do a portion of that work. And again, it's the only exemption. And I think that's one of the things that is really kind of holding back the advancement for someone in the PV industry, other than just being, I hate to say, a day laborer just to install one specific task. And again, thank you for the opportunity, and be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate your testimony. Any questions, members of the committee? Yes, Representative Haynes.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I'm not there in person today, budget meetings here in town, but I appreciate, Paul, you being there and discussing and bringing this problem forth to us. Just in regards to the exemption, is there electrical unions, like how are they feeling about this as a possibility going forward?
Actually, I'll be testifying very shortly in front of Gen Law. We have a number of speakers up there now testifying. Forgive me, I believe it's HB 6085 to eliminate the exemption.
So that you're saying that they're okay with this?
I'm sorry?
You're suggesting that it's okay with the unions to?
Yes, we strongly support getting eliminating the exemption to be able to advance the PV apprenticeship program to further the solar industry.
Thank you very much, Paul. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Representative.
Yes, Representative.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Costello. Really appreciate it. And when I'm thinking about the pathways you mentioned, are there opportunities you see to upskill your current workers, or is that part of what we may need to do in this work? And secondarily, the pathways can start, as you know, as early as high school. What do you see as a vision for that can help build this future workforce?
Sure. So the E-type license is an unlimited category license. So it would cover everything from telecommunications, including photovoltaics. So the photovoltaic training is already part of we'll call it the E-type unlimited license. So those apprentices, that is a career path. I had one project where I had 60 apprentices working on various solar projects for contractors. So that avenue is already there. What we'd like to see is to advance the PV program to bring in another group of workers. Back in, as I said, 2007, the license came out, but unfortunately, there's been no growth. It's been kind of stunted by the lack of participation, I think, through the apprenticeship program. If we could bring those workers that are doing just one aspect of the installation, allow them to further their skill set and to be able to not only mount the module, but actually wire the module, then go from the next phase of that to bring more of the system together, then they'll be well equipped. And I think that would build up a better workforce that is more versatile. Because right now, the way that the exemption works is I would have someone mount it, and we've literally had electricians standing in back of them, waiting until they fasten down that module to do the wiring of the module to advance to the next module and then make the connections on those. It just seems like they're just kind of chasing each other. It doesn't make sense. Now, if you were able to train that individual and give them a skill set to understand why it's working in the matter it is, and how many modules are allowed to be on what we call a string. So that's where some of the technical related instructions come in as well. So it would be a good career path to actually have more people doing more of the installation and then just one portion of it. And through our Connecticut Votex school system is a good resource, and we strongly support them and work with them in conjunction.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate your testimony.
Thank you for your time.
Right. Sean Bradbury is up next with Board of Regents, and then Kate Dias will be joining us remotely. Sean, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad. I see Representative Haynes is virtual, and our other members of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. My name is Sean Bradbury. I'm the Senior Director, Government Relations and External Affairs for the Connecticut State College and University System. You all hear plenty from me all the time, so I'll try to keep this short and sweet. There's a number of bills or proposed bills before you that I think CSU is generally supportive of the goals and the concepts of, and we are eager to work with committee members as these concepts get fleshed out, answer any questions that you have, and provide additional detail. Two specifically on 5438 and 6097. I think from the speakers you've heard before, these are two bills that seek to address critical shortage areas that we have in this state. There's 100,000 jobs going unfilled. A lot of them are in these areas. And there's a particular acute need to find ways to subsidize the cost of college attendance for these students to get the credentials that they need to enter these fields. We would actually recommend, I know one of them proposes a tuition waiver, the other has proposed expansion of the PAC program. We put forward a proposal, I'll use this as a shameless opportunity to plug this, as a CSU 2030 with a massive expansion of the PAC program across for all credential bearing programs, credit and non-credit at the community colleges, and for critical workforce shortage areas at the CSUs that we think would do a really great job of helping to address these areas. You know, specifically on 6097, we're really supportive of the goals. We just have a preference for funded scholarship opportunities for students over tuition waivers. We find that tuition waivers are actually harder for students to access. Sometimes if they're not straightforward with that they're seeking tuition coverage through a waiver, it can sometimes get lost in the process. The scholarship opportunity makes it transparent for everybody. The money's available, it's there, and they have it packaged straight at the point of admissions. And it just makes it more easier for people to see where the money's going. But generally supported that concept. And then the final piece I just want to speak to is SB 740. just because it calls out Charter Oak specifically, I just want to give Charter Oak a nice shout out as an institution that has a unique mission in the state of Connecticut, serving adult learners, particularly with their credit or credit for prior learning, which was previously the prior learning assessment that you had, is Charter Oak's tool of helping adult learners get their credential in a shorter amount of time by providing credit for training they may have received, whether it's in the military, for a prior employer, in a ton of different areas that they can come in some cases as much as almost a full year of their associate's degree with credit from the prior learning that they've already done. So we stand ready at CSU to work with all of you as these concepts are fleshed out, as you're exploring these ideas, to provide additional information and resources, and obviously to make sure that our institutions are a resource for everyone in the state of Connecticut and all of your workforce development efforts. So hopefully that was quick.
Sean, thank you. Yeah, and for those members who are present or who are, joining us virtually and members of the public, I think it's important to note that the proposal that you all put forward is not before us, at least in one piece, shall we say, right? Because you're going through the appropriations committee, is that right?
Correct. So they're having, so there's two pieces of that. And I just want to say, I know we're going to have a public hearing where there'll be a number of PAC bills raised. And I know President Chang and our CFO, Ben Barnes, would love to come to that to talk to you all about that. So I'm not trying to steal their thunder on this yet, but, and they'll be more than capable of answering specifics on that. But those, correct, are two pieces. One will be in the appropriations committee through the traditional budget process. And the other is a bill that the concept got raised in finance on Monday for the bond package associated with CSU 2030.
Yeah, and I look forward to continuing the conversation because if you've seen already, we have, proposals for certain career fields and which ones are we going to target. You all have, if you can remind us, you did PAC Plus, right? Would extend it into the CSCU. But tell us specifically about PAC Plus. What are the career fields that you're looking to?
Correct. So I think, and that's a great point. We're really eager to have that conversation about the session because I know Senate Democrats introduced a proposal on an A to B program similar to the PAC Plus. We've identified critical shortage areas in like allied health and nursing and education. I believe computer science and engineering, if I may be mistaken, but it's been a long day. Those are some of the programs that we've identified, but we've heard proposals and conversations with others. I know with Representative Haddad identified, possibilities of, working with OWS and others to what majors are evolving over the years, that what we identify as critical shortage areas today may not be the critical shortage areas, 2 years from now, 4 years from now, that we want to make sure that this is a process that can respond to kind of the job market and where employers really need these majors, and also where students are kind of voting with their feet of what majors they're interested in going into.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. And I think we've heard already the importance of offering them in a variety of settings, both to part-time, returning, virtual, right? You name it. So some nimbleness, I think, will be important.
Absolutely. And I think we're eager to hear, even today from some of the stakeholders we've had here, there's obviously particular challenges in certain, employment sectors that we want to make sure we're being responsive to. And if there's ways that we can, Charter Oak may be a better venue for one of those programs than a CSU or a community college, or having a variety of those options for folks available is really critical to helping us fill this need. I think you've heard from everybody here. We're all here to kind of work together, all on Team Connecticut, to make sure that we're getting these jobs filled and providing economic and social mobility to our residents, but also helping to fill these jobs that our employers need.
Right. Sean, thank you. I'm going to ask if anyone has any other questions. Representative.
Thanks for your testimony. We appreciate it. And I would just also point out that the major difference between a tuition waiver and scholarship dollars is that the tuition waivers are essentially funded by other students, right? So a tuition waiver is a mandate on the system or the college to provide, to not charge tuition to a particular individual, and in return, and I guess they make up the difference by through other tuition and fees.
Correct. And that's part of, I think, our testimony of what we've tried over the years, pretty standard. Anytime a tuition waiver comes up, no matter how supportive we are of that general like concept, we have always opposed a tuition waiver because it really makes it the cost of attendance higher for everybody while subsidizing it for that one group. A particular scholarship is going to achieve the same goal, but it's going to make sure that we're not passing those costs along to other students and that we have the resources that we need to deliver the student supports, wraparound services that all of our students need to be successful.
Yeah, no, and I just want to say I agree with that approach. I think that if, you know, the legislature and the appropriations committee feels like something's important enough to grant a tuition waiver for, then we really ought to also appropriate money to the system so that they can afford to provide that service without negatively impacting other students. And so I wanted to go on record as saying that I understand and appreciate that.
I couldn't agree more.
I'm going to expose myself as a little bit of a geek because, I sometimes spend my weekends reading a book. In this case, it's called Title 10A of the statutes. And I came across a couple sections that I wanted to ask you about. And I'm not sure you're going to be prepared to answer these questions today, but I know that you'll get answers back to me. A lot of the testimony today has been focused on, nursing and early education. And I came across section 10A-19C, which is a nursing incentive program.
Okay.
I don't know how long the statute has been on the books, but it requires the Board of Regents for Higher Education to establish a program of financial assistance for up to 4 regional technical colleges to enter into partnerships with hospitals and to increase the number of nurses, your capacity to train nurses. Are you aware of the statute? Can you tell me how the system has been complying with the statute to date?
So that, if memory serves me right, that might be the Health Horizons program. That was a pretty recent addition, but I could be wrong on that.
I actually think, there are some clues that, one of the sections indicates that in fiscal years 2005 and in 2006, you can charge up to 2% of the funds appropriated for administration of the service. And so I think that these are probably a program that's been on the books at least since then, close to 20 years. But as we try to come up with solutions, it's interesting to see, sections of the statute where we're wrestling with the same issues in the past. And I guess the reason why I raise it mostly is because, first I want to know that, that the system is complying with the legislation that we already have on the books, and I'm sure you do. And if you go back and sort of, converse with other folks in the administration, I'm sure you can find evidence that you've complied with the statute, can share with us. But more importantly, and if it's not working, then maybe there's a modification to the statute that we can make now that would sort of breathe life into a good idea. Additionally, I would say that 10A-19D, if you want to write those down. So it's 10A-19D and 10A-19C. 19D is a training program for early childhood educators. And it requires the Connecticut State College and University system to expand the capacity of programs for training early childhood education trained teachers. And I'm similarly interested in knowing what work has been underway, and if you could give us a report on how well, the parameters that are outlined in this section are working or not working, and if there's any modification that can occur to that statute so that we can, make those changes if we deem them appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. I will take a look at both of those when I'm sitting in front of my computer and crack in and see where we are at the progress on those. If they predate from 2005, it's likely that those programs had been started as pilots and then expanded out to the other institutions in full-time programs and kind of got wrapped into just how we do our business in those areas. But while we are bringing up I did bring up the Health Horizons, I did want to point out that was $34 million in ARPA funding from last year. That's been tremendously successful in our early implementation. And that's an area that if you all are looking to expand, it's a partnership with with us, local hospitals, public and private institutions of higher education to expand the pipeline in nursing and social work. That has tremendous promise, and it is something that's only been funded with ARPA funding. So continuing that to make sure that that pipeline is able to grow over the years can be another opportunity to explore if we're looking for other areas in the statutes.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your answer to that, and I hope that I trust that you'll get back to me. I mean, I'll mention that there's several other statutes that refer to the Office of Higher Education. I won't burden you with those, but I'll be following up with them as well in terms of their compliance with those statutes as well. Thank you.
Sounds great.
Thank you, Representative Haddad, and let the record show that somebody needs to find something better for you to do on Saturday night. But any other questions for Mr. Bradbury? No, I don't see any online either, so I think you're good to go, and we'll continue this conversation in subsequent public hearings. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, Kate, is Kate with us here? Kate is going to be testifying remotely. I see Kate Diaz. I do not see Kate. All right, so let's skip over Kate here for the time being. Keisha Johnson is with us remotely, or should be. I don't see Keisha either. Catherine Rowe, I do see Catherine Rowe remotely. So Catherine, you are up if you are ready. There you are. Good afternoon. We look forward to your testimony.
Thank you. I'm here to testify in support of House Bill 5441, an act concerning college graduates who work in the fields of education or healthcare in the state. Good morning, Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, Senator Kelly, Representatives Haynes, and other distinguished members of the Higher Ed and Employment Advancement Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments in support of HB 5441, an act concerning college graduates who work in the field of education and or healthcare in the state. My name is Catherine Rowe, and I'm the chair of the Education and Educational Psychology Department at Western Connecticut State University. I'm also the current president of the Connecticut chapter of American Association of Colleges for Teacher Education, which is a group of 13 public and private universities and colleges with educator preparation programs. The AACTE supports this legislation that would establish a student loan forgiveness program or public-private partnership to encourage college graduates to pursue careers in teaching or healthcare in Connecticut. AACTE, as an organization, is keenly aware of the needs to attract aspiring teachers and retain the current teachers, especially since navigating the COVID pandemic and still dealing with its aftermath. While this is only a proposed bill and does not contain the specifics of a student loan forgiveness program or how a public-private partnership would work, the AACTE supports the intent of this legislation to encourage and assist college graduates to become teachers. Western Connecticut State University serves the city of Danbury, and many of our local candidates are first-generation college students. As you may already be aware, teachers are required to earn a master's level degree in order to maintain employment in their profession. However, financial aid is not available to graduate students. Without the support of financial aid or parental supports, candidates cannot afford the high cost of a graduate education, therefore apply and receive student loans. Student loan forgiveness will attract and retain talented educators and healthcare professionals to address these critical shortage areas. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify and submit comments in support of this proposed bill.
Catherine, thank you. I do not see any questions, so thank you for your testimony. We hope you have a good rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Great. So Dominique Cole and Gabriella Bettino, I do not see either of them with us remotely, so I'm going to skip to number 18 on the list, Ashley Zane, who was with CBIA. She'll be joining us now. And then yes.
Gabrielle Bettino is
Okay, let's stay with Ashley here because we've called her up, and then we'll go back to Gabriella right after that.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairs Haddad and Slap, ranking members Haynes and Kelly, and distinguished members of the committee. My name is Ashley Zane. I'm a public policy associate with the Connecticut Business and Industry Association. We represent thousands of businesses across the state, both large and small, and pretty much in every economic sector you can think of. I'm here in support of three bills, HB 5745, 5441, and SB 231. Starting out with HB 5411, we very much support a student loan program for these individuals. These are careers that are experiencing high burnout rates in nursing and teaching. Also, the teaching profession is extremely important for workforce development. Their teachers' products are the next generation of workforce. So we need to make sure that we have high-end teachers who can afford to stay in the state and who are incentivized to stay in our state. Student loan repayment benefits help lower the cost for struggling residents and also increase opportunity for all communities who are tackling high costs of living while pursuing pathways to rewarding and much needed careers. Secondly, we are in support of SB 231, which is studying and promoting the insurance industry. According to Advanced CT, the insurance industry employs 7,396 skilled employees, contributing $22.3 billion to the state's economy. We are the insurance capital of the world, and we should be doing that and making sure that we're recruiting and retaining in various sectors like IT for insurance purposes, actuaries. According to a study in 2021, we had the highest concentration of actuaries in the state across the nation. So we should be supporting this industry and also looking at ways to recruit out-of-state talent to come in to support these jobs. Lastly, HB 5745 concerning the training of solar installation workers. According to DCP, more than 19,000 Connecticut households are currently using solar power, and the costs of doing that have decreased 20% since 2011. We're really going to need these individuals to have the proper training to continue to support our infrastructure, especially as we move towards a zero carbon future. Additionally, commercial solar has become a huge deal within the business community, looking to become greener and also fill the ESG goals of their shareholders. So we really want to make sure that we're creating and funding appropriate training programs for these individuals. So with that, I'm more than happy to take any questions, and thank you so much for your time today.
Ashley, thank you. Any questions from committee members? I don't see any, so we do have one. Yes, sorry, I missed you, Representative John.
No worries. Thank you, Chair. I was tentative at first, but I wanted the opportunity, thank you for your testimony, to ask you all from CBIA, because I know with the Transform Connecticut pledge and those metrics that you would like to see adopted, you do recommend that small businesses get innovative about how to help their employees pay off their student loans, but also make sure that perhaps there's some subsidies, right? That by working they can get, if I'm not misrepresenting your work, but I just would like to hear a bit more about what you all at CBIA think about what can be done at a small business level that perhaps one of these bills could help with that endeavor.
Certainly. So one of the things that I keep hearing is that internships are going to be critical, and then especially within, for example, the nursing field, the precept positions. So especially the small home health care agencies, making sure that, for example, I believe Representative Haddad said he had put in a bill a while ago that would give a tax credit for companies that took on additional precepts, maybe also expanding that to interns and maybe student teachers as well. So that's something that we would be interested in, definitely supportive of.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So tax credits for those businesses so they could help support the educational attainment of their employees.
Exactly. Okay. Because the other thing too, when you do take on a trainee, an apprentice, an intern, the individual who is assuming responsibility for that person is not doing their current job to the fullest that they could do it, because they are supposed to be training and passing on the skills and knowledge. So you are losing productivity with that. So what the tax credits do is they do help to offset the cost of not only the apprentice, intern, or precept trainee, but also the lost production of that full-time employee.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you very much. I don't see any other questions. Have a good rest of your afternoon, Ashley. Thanks.
You too.
All right, let's go back to Gabriella Bottino. I do see Gabriella ready to go. So good afternoon to you.
Hello. Hi, Senator Slapp, Representative Haddock, and members of the committee. My name is Gabriella Bottino. I'm an LPN at Hartford Correctional Center. I have been employed with the Department of Corrections since I was 20 years old, and I'm a lifelong resident of Connecticut. I'm here today to ask that you support 1199's Grow Our Own proposals. By urgently establishing a pipeline between the Connecticut State Colleges, nursing programs specifically, support reserving slots at these nursing programs for state employees, creating preceptor programs and utilizing our experienced nurses within the state agencies to teach new generations of nurses. When workers feel supported, respected through new opportunities, we will remain in the public sector and help alleviate this crisis that we're facing with nursing. I'd like to share my story a little bit. At 17, I graduated from Region 10 in Burlington, Connecticut, enrolled into Lincoln Tech's program and graduated and became an LPN and started my career with correctional nursing. In 2020, I enrolled in Connecticut State College with the PAC program. This program was the only way possible for me personally to financially further education. It required 4 courses each semester, which equates to full-time status. With mounting obligations of my assignment in DOC, due to a COVID pandemic, an opioid epidemic, drastically short staff facility, and family obligations, I completed those prerequisites in those classes. Proudly and excited, I spoke to my advisor. In 2025, I would graduate with an associate's degree in nursing. This degree that would take me one step further in my career will take me as long as it takes one to obtain a master's degree. My advisor reassured me that this included the bridge program offered by Charter Oak State College to shorten the length of time for a licensed practical nurse to bridge directly to nursing course. This is a shame. I dedicated my adult life to my career in correctional nursing. I returned to the county correctional facility where I began my career in 2011. Like every agency, the need for nurses is pulsating through our patient population. The citizens of Connecticut deserve nurses that are educated with aspirations. The patients I aid in county jail are a majority coexisting with mental health and addiction disorders. College taught me that currently without a degree, I am statistically predestined to be a mother of poverty. As a full-time LPN with the state of Connecticut, I'm inviting you to build a real program for those of us with decade of experience or just a drive to learn.
That is your 3-minute mark. Can you please summarize?
Please invest in us. Thank you for your time.
Gabriella, thank you. Thanks for your
You're
wait,
welcome.
for your testimony. I do not see any questions, so hope you have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
All right, so Shelley Davis is next. She's joined us in person. And then assuming we still don't see Kate or Keisha or Dominique Cole, we will then go to Aaron Trowick Smith Millington remotely. But Shelley with us now. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, and members of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. My name is Shelley Davis, and I've been a paraeducator in the Hartford Public Schools for 32 years. In addition to being Executive Vice President of the Connecticut AFL-CIO, I am proud to serve as President of the Hartford Federation of Paraeducators, AFT Local 2221. I am here today to testify in support of HB 6097, an act concerning tuition waivers for paraeducators who seek a degree in education. Paraeducators play an essential role in supporting student learning. We provide one-on-one assistance to students with disabilities, help manage classroom activities, lead small group instruction, provide real-time translation for English language learners, and facilitate communications with families. We are among the lowest paid staff members in the school building, earning less than a living wage. Despite our experience in the classroom, we also face real barriers to career advancement. HB 6097 could make a significant difference. Like many other states, Connecticut is grappling with a significant teacher shortage. Class sizes are large, teachers' workloads are more extreme, and districts are over-relying on long-term substitutes. Statewide, schools have been more than 1,000 unfilled teacher positions before classes began this fall. Students in urban school districts are suffering the most. New Haven had more than 100 teacher vacancies, and Hartford Public Schools, where I work, had about 200 teacher vacancies. Special education teachers are in the greatest demand, with about 225 openings statewide. And I understand that some may not be comfortable with the use of tuition waivers as a workforce development tool, but I ask you to consider that paraeducators are reliable, worthwhile investments. They have already been part of the education process and have experience supporting students. They aren't idealistic about what being a teacher would be like. They know exactly what they are getting into. And once they become certified, they are able to reach proficiency much quicker than a recent graduate with no practical classroom experience. In addition, paraeducators are more likely to resemble the students' population where they work, racially and culturally. They are also more likely to live in the district and where they work, bringing continuity and stability to the community and their students. Paraeducators have the teaching skills and the experience. They just need that degree. Many want to make the leap to teaching, and there is no real formal program to help them do that. HB 6097 creates a much needed pathway, and I urge the committee to support this bill. I thank Representative Khan for introducing HB 6097, and I thank the committee for this public hearing. I would be happy to answer any questions for you.
Shelley, thank you. Yes, I do see one from Representative Cooling. Representative?
Thank you for coming in. Would the natural pipeline be going to get a degree in special ed for the paraeducators? Since
So
we have a huge need
we
in
do have a
special
huge
aid.
need for that, and I think that would be great because we have a lot of special ed students right now that don't have paraeducators and they don't have teachers. We absolutely have a program where we have students in the AB program and you can only have 13 students, and we're already at maximum. So we're putting students into regular classrooms, some with assistance, and it's not helpful or healthy for the students that need the most. So we would be interested in that. We're just interested in getting paraeducators the help that they need to become teachers. As you know, most of them work 2 and 3 jobs because that's not a living wage they have. And this would help them. It would help the students and the community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Representative Haddad.
Yeah, I want to thank you for your testimony, and I just want to address the tuition waiver issue again. I'm in favor of making sure there's a free path for paraeducators to become teachers. The terminology tuition waiver means essentially that it's the school, the receiving school, the state university or UConn or wherever it is that the paraeducator is trying to get their degree from would have to foot the bill without additional support from the legislature. That's what a tuition waiver. I think we should not only create the path, we should fund it from here. And I think that the commitment on the part of the legislature to take these valuable members of our educational ecosystem, paraeducators, and elevate them as they express an interest in becoming more credentialed and capable of taking these teaching positions, full teaching positions, should be honored and valued. And I think the way we do that is by making sure that the funds are there to fund their path, rather than pass a bill that essentially foists that cost onto UConn or onto our state university system. So I just wanted to be clear that I'm very supportive of the goal here. I just don't think we should do it on the cheap and ask other people to pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Representative Cooley and then Representative Leno.
Representative Khan, just wanted to ask a quick question. We're discussing waivers and then state funding. One thing that hasn't been discussed, we used to have a number of school systems where they would pay for certified teachers to get their masters. A school system has a paraeducator in their system where they would then give tuition reimbursement for successfully going through and getting the education degree. Maybe something that you would support and maybe the committee could support, just a concept to throw out there in terms of funding.
Thank you, Representative. Representative, no, you have a question, and then Representative Farrar after that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. Thank you for your testimony today. How many years did you say you were a paraeducator again?
32.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you for your service. You touched on something that kind of triggered something with me. You said you feel you have more experience starting a teaching program as opposed to, let's say, somebody just out of high school that didn't have that real hands-on classroom experience. I think that's fair to say that, correct?
Correct, it is.
You think you could probably get your degree much faster than perhaps somebody who doesn't have that experience.
What I think is not so much to get their degree faster. We have people that come into the system, right, that aren't from here, that have come through other programs, and they might stay a year. And in some cases, they're gone in 2 or 3 weeks. And so we're back at the door of having another shortage. With paraeducators who have been in the system already, they deal with the kids, they know what's here, they live here, and they're not going anywhere. They're going to continue to do the teaching aspect. They already do classroom management. We've been short teachers, and paras are the ones who cover for teachers. So we do have the experience, and we have demonstrated that compared to someone just coming out of high school or even college that just has that degree, but doesn't have that expertise, experience they've already done, and don't know if that's the field they're going to want to stay in.
Well, I certainly appreciate that answer. Just another concept I'd like to throw out. Time is money. Excuse me. And if that real hands-on experience, you already have a classroom experience, all those years working with kids, already have the understanding again where somebody just out of high school or college does not. It'd be interesting to see have some sort of credit where perhaps there's certain courses, certain internships you would not have to complete because you're already in the program. If there's a way we could credit those life experiences and maybe thread that into the program somehow. So I would again I thank you for your testimony, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Farrar.
Thank you to the chair. Thanks for being here in person with us today. Just following along with my colleagues, a couple questions, particularly as we think about how we can do this, because it's one thing to say that we want paraeducators to become teachers, but then there's the reality of the lives of paraeducators, which many individuals who are paraeducators not just are managing their personal lives, but often other jobs. And how can we make sure that they can actually get the teacher certification? So one of the things that came up in our conversation with around early childhood educators was that the Office of Early Childhood has piloted an apprenticeship program for early childhood educators to pursue their further degrees. Do you think that that's something that would be of interest to address for paraeducators if there was an apprenticeship program that would, again, provide an opportunity? They could obviously keep working, keep pursuing this further credential, but at the same time, make sure that it fits into the rest of their life too.
Thank you. That's a great question. I believe that would be doable. I believe that's an avenue we need to look at too. And all of the avenues that everybody brought up is an avenue that we can look at and go down to make sure that we're filling the gap of what we need, and paraeducators being the group that wants to do that. And let me be very clear, not all paraeducators like myself want to go into teaching, right? So we have more than enough that want to be teachers. The problem is, how do we go over? And a lot of them already have their bachelors. So it's been the money for the practice or other things that they need. So I think it would be great, whatever we could do for the career ladder.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. I don't see any other questions. So that's it. We wish you a great afternoon.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to go back just a few speakers. Kate Dias with CEA joins us now. Kate, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your flexibility. I appreciate the committee allowing me to pop in here a little out of order. Thank you so much. I appreciate the committee taking up these issues. As Shelley has mentioned, our paraeducators are wonderful opportunities for us to bring potential teachers into the field, people who know the work. But I recognize that financing that program may be a needle we have to thread carefully so that we do not create a situation of an unfunded opportunity. And so I appreciate all of the comments in terms of creativity and thoughtfulness with regard to how do we encourage paraeducators to go into the field, as Shelley mentioned, those who want to. Provide that opportunity and make it funded and realistic. The second bill I actually would like to mention is the House Bill 5441 about loan forgiveness for education and healthcare workers. As you guys have already talked about it probably a lot, is the teacher shortage that is no longer looming, but is a present daily existence for our educators. If we don't find creative and exciting ways to bring people into the field, the problem will only persist. And as I've talked about many times, this is the year that we may need to make strong, bold, visible initiatives so that people stop and pause and really consider the field of education and our partners in healthcare workers. I think being partnered in this bill makes a lot of sense. But this is one step, one way we get the attention of students in schools and say, listen, this is a field that can be financially accessible. It is not a field where you have to financially martyr yourself to go into it. It is something that can be sustained and supported, and we are excited for people to take on that educational opportunity. So I hope that you seriously consider both of these bills and really getting into the nitty-gritty, as you've already started, in terms of providing funding for them in the long term. I think we know that this is a year. This is a moment where education needs to be a top priority, and that is education throughout. So I imagine I will see you more than once in this session and have the opportunity to talk to you about the plethora of issues I think we're going to face in education that I choose to see as opportunities for us to build the profession, to strengthen our capabilities of taking care of educators, and really find exciting and new ways to draw people in. And I think these two bills go away to bringing people into the field, hopefully diversifying our profession and encouraging those who are already there to continue to persist and to get additional education. Thank you so much to the committee for seriously considering these bills and looking creatively at ways to support our educators and our paraeducators. Thank you.
Kate, thank you. Don't go away just yet. We have a few questions for you. Representative
Sure.
Farr.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for being here. Since we were on the topic of paraeducators a few minutes ago and with you here, could you speak specifically to how, again, any effort around particular programming and recruitment to move paraeducators into teaching profession really would meet our goals of diversifying the profession? I think people often don't think about that aspect. So I appreciate you bringing it up. And can you clarify and provide some more information to that?
Certainly. Often our paraeducators are some of the most diverse employees that we have. They'll be diverse in age as well as ethnicity and opportunity. So oftentimes we're drawing from family members, people in the community. Our paraeducators are most tightly linked to the communities in which they're working. So the exciting part is they often really reflect the makeup of our communities, which, as we know, is diverse in many, many of our cities and towns. And so often we see that reflected in the paraeducator pool. And so I think it's a prime opportunity to look at diversifying our workforce. The State Department has us at about 10.6% of our workforce is a person of a minority indicator, somebody who is self-identified. That's far below the threshold of the state to make sure that our population as educators really reflects the students in front of us. So wherever we can enhance and find ways to bring people who are different into the profession, I think we really should engage in that discussion seriously. And like I said, often our paraeducators are right from the communities that we work in. And so they often really do reflect the true makeup of our school district. So it's a really important place to think about targeting resources.
Thank you for that. And have you similarly gotten any feedback, either by survey or anecdote, from paraeducators specifically about what the barriers are for them personally to take this step to becoming a teacher?
Certainly. It's often time and money. And our paraeducators are not the highest paid employees. And Shelley would be really great for the statistics on that. But our paraeducators can't often afford to take the time away from their first or second job to go and get additional education. So I think we do need to factor in how do we also carve out support time. The other things I think often is it can feel daunting. If you've been away from the classroom, as a student for a very long time, it can be daunting to go back. So ensuring that we support our paraeducators with time, with resources, and probably with serious mentorship to make sure that they have what they need to be really successful. Because merely getting a person certified doesn't necessarily assure us they become an educator for life, which is really our goal. So we want to ensure that we put all the supports in that allow for really great success for our paraeducators. And actually, we have a number of programs for alternate route to certification in the state that are trying to kind of pilot these ideas of, all right, how do we bring people in and support them? And I think that works well if you already have a bachelor's degree. I think what this legislation would allow for is how do we get and capture the people who maybe have associate's degrees and need few more courses to become completely certified. So I think this is a way for us to continue to be flexible in our thinking about how we draw people to the profession.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks for being with us.
Kate, thank you. I do not see any more questions, but look forward to continuing the conversation in the next few months ahead. So thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our list, I'm looking for Aaron. I do not see Aaron, but I do see a Damien. Damien Nuzzo is joining us virtually. Damien, are you there? We'll give Damien a second here. If not, Tina Flores is after Damien. I don't see Tina, but I do see Julie Tapia. Julie, are you there? No? All right. We have some placeholders here. Leslie. Is there a Leslie?
Yes, Julie.
Okay, I do see Julie now. Julie, we have audio. Julie, if you're able to join us with video, that would be much appreciated. There you go. You are sideways, but whatever you can do, we appreciate it. Julie, the floor is yours. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, and members of the Higher Education Committee. My name is Julie Bisono Tapia. I have been a nurse for 2 years and have worked as a nurse for the Southwest Connecticut mental health system for just over a year. I work in an inpatient unit where I provide for the safety and health of 20 patients affected by serious mental health conditions. For my first nursing job, I chose to work in a mental health to help address an issue in this country that is only growing and is often overlooked. In addition to meeting their immediate medical needs, we help the patients utilize important coping skills. Without proper care, there is a potential for them to seriously decompensate and struggle to return to the community. By its nature, our work exposes us to risks of danger when patients act unpredictably or don't take their medications as prescribed. A lot of our patients suffer from comorbidities alongside their mental health conditions. Many cannot walk independently. We don't have enough equipment for mobility aids and getting patients out of bed. While we do physically demanding and risky work, one of the most challenging things about the current structure at Southwest Connecticut mental health system is the staffing and scheduling. Creating the assignment sheet that will appropriately staff the unit is always nearly impossible. When staff members are frequently working very long shifts, the quality of care may be worse. When there are not enough staff and we are mandated to work, we work 16 hours, and then we are expected to come back to the usual time the next day. When you are overworked and deprived of proper sleep, your brain cannot function to its full potential. You can identify problems with the patients as well, psychologically or medically. The staffing shortage directly harms the quality of care we can provide and prolongs the time it will take for the patient to heal or return to the community. To address the staffing crisis, I ask that you include language in SB 936 that will expand capacity within our public university nursing program. Create clinical placement internship programs in collaboration with our public colleges and universities. Fund and create preceptor programs.
That is
Reverse
your 2-minute mark. Please summarize.
Investing in the nursing profession and creating more job placement will help create stronger pathways for underrepresented groups in the nursing profession, like Latino and people with low incomes. It is impossible for just one nurse to help when a patient needs special attention with mobility. Help us create a team of qualified and diverse nursing professionals at the degree of mental health and additional service for investing in District 1199, growing our own policies in our colleges and universities.
Great. Julie, thank you very much for your testimony. Thank you. I do not see any questions, so we'll let you get back to it, but appreciate your time. Hope you have a good rest of your afternoon. So I'm going to ask our clerk to let the rest of the people into the virtual waiting room or whatever we call it, just because we're not sure how many folks will be ready, and we're nearing the end of the lineup here. So let me I see Leslie Blateau. So let's go to Leslie here. We'll be up next. Leslie, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, and Ranking Members Senator Kelly and Representative Haynes. I'm Leslie Blateau, the president of the New Haven Federation of Teachers, a union representing over 1,700 educators in New Haven public schools. I'm also an at-large vice president of AFT Connecticut and a member of the statewide coalition Recovery for All. As someone who's worked for a long time with high school students as they craft their post-secondary plans, and as someone who currently represents educators during this time of crisis, intense need, and workplace shortages, I would like to comment on proposed House Bills 5438, 5441, and 6097. I also want to thank and agree with my union sister, Shelley Davis, for her compelling testimony earlier this afternoon. Our paraprofessionals are the backbone of our classrooms and schools, and what benefits our paras benefits our students and teachers as well. During this time of increased stress and workforce shortages, increased support for students pursuing service professions such as childcare, healthcare, nursing, and education is most welcome. Economic obstacles that impede working class and low-income students from accessing higher ed must be removed, not only so students and families can pursue their academic and professional goals, but also so we can address these worker shortages. These are issues of racial, gender, and economic justice. And in a state as wealthy as Connecticut, where millionaires and billionaires pay taxes as low as 6%, there is no reason for our high school grads and other interested candidates to incur burdensome student loan debt when they are eager to get the training and credentials required to serve and support our students, our children, our elders, and others with medical needs. I've also served on the American Federation of Teachers National School Staff Shortage Task Force, where we released recommendations for addressing staff shortages. I'm happy to share more details about those, and I look forward to working with legislators and assisting in crafting legislation in the weeks and months to come. Thank you for your commitment to this important work.
Leslie, thank you for your time, and please do submit those ideas that you mentioned or those recommendations. I think those would be of great benefit to the committee as we.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Have a good rest of your afternoon.
Likewise.
All right. So Caitlin McIntosh, I see Caitlin. Caitlin, floor is yours. Good afternoon.
Hi. Hopefully you guys can all hear me okay. I know that another veterinarian spoke earlier today, but just was here as a private practitioner and a practice owner just to make sure that you are all aware this shortage of having medical professionals in our state definitely affects our profession as well. Since COVID, there's been an astronomical explosion in the amount of animals seeking veterinary care. We've been looking for about 2 years to hire an associate. I can tell you myself, when I started in practice in 2009, I went to practice in upstate New York because I was able to have some of my loans forgiven through a grant in that state, specifically seeking to hire large animal veterinarians. But I think a similar sort of program where for any veterinarian at this point, to bring them back to our small state would be very helpful. We don't have a veterinary school here. And there's about maybe 50 kids per year from Connecticut that leave our state to go to veterinary schools outside of the area, which are often quite expensive. So it's not a career that someone picks based on trying to make a ton of money. It's a career that someone picks based on having a passion for it. And being able to pull those people back to our state would be really helpful.
Caitlin, thank you. Appreciate your time. I don't see any questions, so we'll let you go. Have a great rest of your afternoon, Caitlin.
Thank you very much.
All right. So Olivia Rinkus is next on the list. I do not see Olivia. Representative Khan, I believe, is after Olivia. Representative is here, so we'll give her a second to get to the microphone. Representative, good to see you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, and the members of the Higher Education Committee. Good afternoon. My name is Miriam Khan. I represent the 5th House District, representing the towns of Windsor, Hartford, and South Windsor. I also work as a special education teacher in Hartford Public Schools. I'm here today to speak in support of House Bill 6097. I know we had some discussion so far on this bill. So some background, as you know, the current state of our teacher shortage in Connecticut is at a critical point at this time. And I think this heightens the urgency for us to create some bold and unique solutions to fill some of these teacher vacancies in the coming years. This bill proposes an investment opportunity for the state to invest in our paraeducators that aspire to be teachers. Paraeducators work tirelessly in our school buildings, and they play an essential role in the education of our students. Many teachers start their careers in education as paraeducators. This bill would create a debt-free option that would open the door for those that may not consider teaching due to the financial burden of getting a college degree. The state has identified the shortage of special education teachers as a dire need. In fact, according to our Department of Education, about 25% of our total teacher vacancies across the state are for special education teachers. We have also recognized the need for the state to address the need to diversify the teacher workforce. This bill creates a pathway that would address both of those needs of our teacher workforce and invest in people who invest in our schools every day and create for them a pathway to teaching if they so choose. I urge you to support this bill. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Representative, thank you. And yeah, I do have a question. So there was an event that I attended and many other folks in the legislature attended this past Saturday here at the Capitol, hosted by CEA. And we heard from some aspiring educators and they talked about the burden that some of these tests, right, that, you know, the paying for the test, the cost, I should say, Praxis. And there was another one that probably that's it. Yeah. So anyway, there are a few of them that they cited as being particularly kind of onerous. And then if you only pass a certain part of it, you know, there's penalties or whatever, the expense goes up. Just wondered, do you think that and maybe this hasn't been your, you know, your experience, but just from what you're hearing and witnessing, do you think if we could eliminate the cost of those tests, do you think that would move the needle at all in helping getting folks maybe who are paraeducators who are interested in becoming certified teachers? Would that help? Or, you know, again, make a dent at all?
I think that's an area that you can definitely explore. I know that when I was in my program, that was a big barrier for many students passing some of these. So some of these are very, there are some tests that are needs-based. So like if I became a special ed teacher, I took one that was specific to my field, but then there's this one general one that kind of covers, it's almost like taking your SATs again, but a little more rigorous. And I know one of my friends who came from out of state at one point couldn't get her certification because of that Praxis 1 test. And, you know, she's been teaching 5th grade for years, but what the level of, especially math that it required on that test was pretty advanced. So she had to study for weeks leading up to it, which not everybody might have time for. And so I think that's definitely an area to consider.
Thank you. Yes, Representative Haddad.
Yeah, thank you very much for bringing the bill forward. I mean, you know, I think it's sort of all hands on deck, you know, to try to resolve some of these workforce shortages. And certainly this one is one of the more impactful ones statewide. And so thank you very much for bringing it to our committee and for bringing your expertise to the committee. One of our colleagues mentioned earlier the possibility of seeing if there was credit that could be provided to paraeducators who are pursuing a teaching degree for the work that they already perform in our system. And that's a concept I think is sort of interesting one, but I'm unfamiliar with the accreditation standards for teacher educator programs. And I didn't know if you were could comment on that idea at all, about whether or not you think that might prove a fruitful place for us to look.
Yeah. So, you know, there's some coursework in teacher prep programs that are more introductory. And I think, you know, especially paraeducators that have been working in our schools, some of those you can definitely explore looking into and seeing how we can credit some of the experience for those courses. Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The only other question I wanted to ask you about was, you know, we currently have a program that of loan forgiveness for it's not completely I'm sorry, we have a program that's run through CHESLA that provides a low interest loan alternative for folks who refinance their loans through CHESLA if you're a teacher in an Alliance school district, right? So if you're a teacher in an Alliance school district, you owe loans, you can refinance through CHESLA and you can get your loan repayment sort of brought down to an interest rate of less than 1%. And I don't know if you had heard of that program or if you think that that's an effective model, if any of your coworkers or colleagues know about the program, but it's a way of making sure at least that the payments that are made on student loans go towards principal and not just the interest. And so you can make real progress on that. But I just was curious to know if you knew about the program, if you thought that was an effective strategy.
I actually do not know about the program, but I will say just in terms of some of our loan forgiveness programs that we've had, especially for teachers, they have a lot of barriers in place. So accessing some of those loan forgiveness has been pretty difficult. I know teachers will often ask like, hey, how did you get this if you did get it? Because some of them, like they'll require consecutive work, but what counts as consecutive, what doesn't? There's lots of other things. How you prove you've worked there if someone has left, if administration has left. So there's lots of barriers in place with loan forgiveness programs, which is why, especially for this bill, I didn't want to look for loan forgiveness, but specifically in terms of what can we do now to provide that pathway, especially given where we are in terms of the shortage.
Thank you for your testimony and for your expertise. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks again. Yes, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just comment for edification of the committee. Having dealt with prior learning credit in my previous career as a dean, most number of institutions do offer prior learning credit, and usually you have to submit a portfolio so the student doesn't have to repeat the skill sets that have already been achieved. Usually institutions will either give the credit, what the course is worth, or exempt out that course and ask the student to take another course that will provide extra expertise in an area that wasn't necessarily required. So that's tends how prior learning credit works at the college level. Not all institutions do it, but the mechanism does exist. And the question is going to be expanded for the para educators and used. So I just want to add that clarification.
Thank you, Representative. Great. I don't see any other comments or questions. Thank you, Representative Khan. Have a great rest of your day. We're going to go back in the order now to Aaron Trawick Smith Millington, who's joining us virtually. Aaron, are you there? And if so, if you're able to turn on your camera, that'd be much appreciated.
Well, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Aaron.
Okay, I'm trying to turn on my camera.
Okay.
I am not seeing how to do it.
We'll give Aaron a second here.
Sorry, I'm on a phone and I'm trying to, let's see.
That's all right.
Aha.
Aaron, go ahead.
Okay, I'm just going to speak. If you can't see me, but you can hear me, I am an equine veterinarian. I'm on the road. That is sort of what we do, and our days are often unpredictable. I wanted to say good afternoon to Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, I believe Senator Kelly, we were told, and Representative Haynes, who is my own rep, and the members of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. I am Erin Trawick Smith. I am an equine exclusively ambulatory veterinarian, and I work out of East Haddam. I am here to give my support for Bill 5441, an act concerning college graduates who work in the fields of education or healthcare in the state. The bill reads as an effort to create financial incentives for healthcare professionals to work in Connecticut. And the local veterinary industry, this necessarily means that we have to encourage veterinarians to return to Connecticut because it is not possible for us to receive an education in state. The veterinary industry as a whole is experiencing what is deemed a hiring crisis. I know many practices, both small and large animal, that have been unable to fill positions for extended periods of time. I wonder, as a young professional, what makes a professional come home? It's fair to say that this is usually a component of or multifactorial relating to what jobs are available, how desirable the particular employers are, family and marital relationships, and of course, finances. large animal veterinarians, either equine like myself or those who see other large animals such as dairy and small ruminants, notoriously make much less money than cat and dog veterinarians. And cat and dog veterinarians typically receive higher salaries in affluent areas, certainly not some of the jobs that are advertised at the moment, such as in Hartford. I will illustrate a few points with my personal story. I am a product of the Meriden public school system entirely, and my horse experience came in the Wallingford farming community. My parents were minimally able to support even my college education, so I had undergraduate loans and graduate school loans, which at this time total more than my home mortgage. Most of that is interest, and I am unable to have shorter repayment actually just because I also have undergraduate loans, which penalizes my ability to have a shorter repayment term. I personally started my own practice and I have a talented and wonderful associate. It is not because I pay her well. It is because I am close to her age and I understand what she needs as an employer. And was able to support her during the pandemic, which was confusing. Other jobs in our region have been advertised for a long period of time and they remain unfilled. This is in part because graduates cannot afford to take the starting salaries that are offered to them when we often have extremely excessive high interest debt. If my debt had been reduced, I could have potentially, sorry?
That was your
I'm
3-minute
sorry?
mark. Please summarize.
Oh, okay. So I guess my point is that if I had less debt, I could participate in my community better. I could be a good employer. But as it is, I am financially burdened and it's hard for me to consider purchasing a practice. It's hard for me to consider supporting other people. It is difficult for new graduates to come back to our state predominantly as a factor of their debt. And that's, what is causing the shortage in general. And then also the failure for people to return to Connecticut. So if you have any questions, I would love to answer them. And thank you very much for your time.
Aaron, thank you. I do not see any questions of our members. So thanks again. Have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry I couldn't make my video work.
No worries. I want to just check in with the clerk here. Do we have anyone in the waiting room?
No.
No. Okay. And I don't see anybody else on the screen or waiting here. So we've concluded our public hearing. We're going to finish here just a couple minutes before 2 o'clock. We have a meeting scheduled for next week on Thursday at 11:30. Is it 11:30?
No, tentatively, we have a meeting scheduled for Tuesday at 11:30
Tuesday,
and a
okay.
hearing scheduled for next Thursday at 11:30.
Great. Thank you for the clarification, Representative. So we'll be back in action next week with one meeting and one public hearing. But with that, I will wrap up and close out this public hearing of the Higher Education Employment Advancement Committee. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.